Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this video from. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ching, and in today's video, I'll be paying homage to my Kenyan culture, and one of the amazing dish that we prepare is called Pilau Masala. Pilau Masala, it's basically a spice. The Pilau Masala. The masala is a blend of spices that are blended together into a powder. So they're whole ground spices and they're kind of mixed together and then crushed together, and then they make some sort of powder. So that's what we call the Pilau Masala part of it. And the main ingredient for this dish is rice, and not just any type of rice, is basmati rice. Now this is how basmati rice looks like, but the grain is a little bit, it's thinner and then it's long. That's what makes basmati rice different. I always use jasmine, but for jasmine I like preparing jasmine rice with other dishes. But for pilau masala, basmati rice is a must. You can change it with another rice, but basmati rice is the main rice that you use for this particular dish. So if you're watching this video and you have not subscribed, please guys, if you can please click on the subscribe button. And if you already have, thank you so much. And if you're new to this video, thank you so much. Welcome to our YouTube channel. So like I started explaining, I will be preparing pilau masala and I'll be using basmati rice. I'm also going to use a spice blend. So every time I go back to Kenya, I live in the diaspora. So every time I go back to Kenya, I always buy spices. That is always on my shopping list. And with the spices, we have a city called Mombasa, and that's where you have more of the Swahili cuisine and you get more of the fresh spices. You can get it in Nairobi too, but every time I'm in Mombasa, I prefer getting it there because it's closer to the border of Kenya and Tanzania. So you get a more unique spice blend there. But this is the spice. This is how it looks like, and it is brown in color. And you'll see once we are done preparing our pilau masala, it's going to look brown. That's the amazing thing about pilau masala and what makes it stand out. It's its color, it's brown, and it is so beautiful. It's a mixture of various types of spices that just brings a lot of flavor to your pilau masala dish in overall. And then I am going to be using ginger. I've already prepared a ginger. I'm not going to use all of it because in this dish I'm using 2 cups of basmati rice, but this is some of the ginger that I'm going to use. I'm going to be using garlic, of course, and then also I have beef. I'm going to use beef in this video, and I've already softened it and I've already extracted the beef broth because we need that beef broth as to use it as our liquid so it can add more flavor to the rice. And also I'm going to be using turmeric powder. Now turmeric powder is really good, and in this video I'm going to use only half a teaspoon of turmeric powder just to add more depth to the flavor. I'm going to use black pepper, of course, to add spiciness to the food, and then I'm going to use cumin. Cumin brings some other flavor to your food, and it's a really good blend mixture to this food. Now also sometimes I add something else like maybe the chicken bouillon, maggi. I'm definitely going to use maggi. It's just this cube right here. And I could add maybe some smoked paprika or some cayenne pepper for some depth of smoky flavor, and then for cayenne pepper for some depth of spiciness. But it will depend on how I feel as I go. But I already have the oil heating up, and for this recipe I'm going to use 1 whole onion. I'm going to be using 1 white onion. Back home in Kenya, usually we use red onion is the most popular onion in Kenya, but here I have white onion, so that's what I'm going to use. And the trick here is the white onion has to turn brown, like it has to look like it's burning. That's how long we have to cook the onion. So I'm going to walk you through the steps, and I really hope you enjoy. Let me know if it's a dish that you are familiar with. If you're not from Kenya, or if you're from the East Africa, I'm sure you know about this dish. But if you're watching from other parts of the world, let me know what you think about this dish. But for me, where I live, it's similar to dirty rice, honestly, if you think about it, but it's just a different version. So I really hope that you enjoy this video, and enough talking, and let's get to the recipe. So first I'm going to go ahead and prepare our onion. I'm using one whole onion. And with this dish, the onions had to be cut in this shape. I'm going to show you exactly how they look like. So this is the shape that the onion have to be cut in. I highly recommend you to cut it that way, but again, you can cut it in different ways, but it's just one of the things that makes this dish more unique. So we have our onion there, ready to go. So I already have my garlic crushed, but not my onions. So I have this right here that's going to help me to crush the garlic, the ginger, sorry. And I'm someone that really loves flavor. I love flavor. So I already know that I'm going to add some more spices, different spices to build up the flavor. I just do not know yet, but honestly, it just depends with my mood. But definitely I can tell you beforehand that I'm definitely going to be adding more spices. So that's enough ginger for this. And what I'm going to do is just kind of beat it down. Perfect. I'm happy with how it looks, as you can see. So I'm going to set that aside. I have my garlic ready. I have my onion ready, and I already cleaned our basmati rice. This is exactly how it looks like. So what we're going to do, we're just going to proceed with the next steps. So our oil is already heated up. What we are going to do, we are going to brown our meat first. And the reason why we are browning our meat is just to give it some texture. Our pilau is ready cooked and ready to be served. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think about it. But this is Pilau Masala, a Kenyan cuisine that is so amazing. And if you have not subscribed, please do not forget to subscribe. Thank you for joining me through this journey. And until next time, bon appetit.